Good morning, everybody. My name is Dylan Shimon. My pronouns are he, she, and I am the Learning Experience Designer at Equality Leaders. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy calendars this morning to spend the next 30 minutes with myself, the rest of the Equality Leaders team, and our wonderful guest, Oge. I'll be introducing you to our Allyship Unlocked program, walking you through a little bit more about what you can expect from that program. But the purpose of today is for me to have a fireside chat with the wonderful Oge, who is the Senior DE&I Business Partner at CSG International. Oge, who has kindly offered to join me here today to speak a little bit more about how they leveraged Allyship Unlocked as part of their training program for their DE&I Council. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see faces. Okay, I would love to give you the virtual floor to introduce yourself briefly.
Thanks, Dylan, and hi to everyone. It's lovely to see you all. So as Dylan said, my name is Oge. I am the Senior DEI Business Partner at CSG. I've been at the company for about 1.5 years now, and my role is to really look at how we can build and mature our DEI across the organization, and as well as looking at data and insight and how to do that through data and insight as well. Outside of work, I love hiking. I'm part of a great hiking community for Black women, and yeah, it's one of the things I love outside of work.
I love that, and that's something I need to be better at because my dad is a big hiker, and I need to find a hiking community. I've got very expensive hiking boots in my cupboard, but I seldom ever take them out. So thank you for being here, Oge. So I guess my first question, and probably the burning one, as it were, is what was the business rationale then for the training? What was that catalyst rather for needing support?
Yeah, so we were quite early on in our DEI journey. So when I started at the organization, it was very much a year of building our DEI kind of infrastructure. And one of the things that was recognized early on was that we needed to, as a global organization, we needed to kind of bring people across the different business units and across different regions to kind of build how we wanted to use them as facilitators to push DEI across their different regions, their different business functions, and really get a support to kind of assess and inform some of our DEI strategy. So that was kind of the catalyst for how we set up our DEI Council, and then recognizing that people were in different stages of their DEI journey. How could we kind of facilitate that learning and development for our DEI Council members so that they could be efficient in supporting us in moving our DEI strategy forward.
Thank you. So what then did you hope to achieve? What did success look like for you?
Yeah, because it was, again, our first year of kind of the inauguration of our DEI Council. I believe it was 2022, so last year. We wanted to make sure that we had that kind of baseline for our DEI council members. So being able to help them understand some of the key concepts around DEI, what did that look like for them? How could they action that as council members? That's what we wanted to get out of Allyship Unlocked, and being able to take them through that journey.
Thank you. So how well then was Allyship Unlocked received by your council members? What was some of the feedback?
We had some really good feedback. We had people who informed us that this was the first time that they were hearing about some of the complex concepts that we explored during the sessions. A few were able to kind of piece together kind of why this concept meant this in their DEI journey. It was a really good kind of building block to help our council members mature and understand how to kind of take their DEI journey forward. So it was really well received. We had some really good attendance as well. And yeah, it was really beneficial to their learning and development of how they could apply some of those key things that they learned in the sessions in their kind of teams and outside of the council as well.
Thank you. So, as you and I know, but not a lot of our audience members will know, is that obviously CSG is an international organization. You have offices across the globe, and your Global DE&I Council members were tuning in to Allyship Unlocked from different geographies, everywhere from, Australia, Asia, Africa, the Americas, etc. How did that play out? Because of course, those different geographies have very different DE&I landscapes. There's very different dynamics and nuances. How did Allyship Unlocked help support them? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think what was really good is that there was a cultural context that was weaved into the sessions. So knowing that people had different geographies, we were able to look at how does that play out in different people's contexts. So having that kind of open dialogue within the sessions to have discussions as well really helped people to frame what we were discussing and how to apply it into their own contexts as well. So it was good to see some of those bite-sized information, and then how did people apply it to their regional contexts?
Hmm. So what I'm hearing there is the importance of actually having that space to have those open conversations and those dialogues, which perhaps they may not have had the opportunity to do so before. How comfortable do you feel, because you were of course a part of the program, how comfortable do you think people felt when it came to that space, coming together and asking those questions that perhaps they may not have necessarily been keen to ask in other forums?
I think because we set it up as a safe space initially, I think people felt comfortable to bring, their questions, to bring their thoughts and feelings into that space without judgment. So the council members knew that it was a space of learning. They knew early on, and through some of the activities in the learning journal, that it would be a challenging space for them. There would be things that they may not have thought, was an issue, or things that evoked quite challenging feelings for them. But being able to have those discussions with people who were on a similar journey with them was really beneficial to kind of create that safe space for the council members to share their honest thoughts and feelings.
Mm. And I think that's a big part of this program, right? Is that discomfort, because there are uncomfortable questions, or at least questions that challenge participants to reflect on things they may not have reflected on before or thought about. One question comes to mind in terms of, how do we step up as allies when it comes to challenging friends or family, right? That's often a really uncomfortable conversation to have, because for most of us, we are wanting to, keep the peace, as it were. So do you feel as though the learning journal and those exercises
Mm.
were key to the program, and what do you think, what was the value add of having that journal and giving the council members that opportunity to, one, reflect, and then two, openly share those
Mm.
in the program?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you go through kind of a learning training, it's a lot of information at one time in that space, and then you don't necessarily have the tools to be able to take it away, reflect. So I think the learning journal was a really good resource to be able to help them to take back some questions, to kind of bring some thoughts to the session, so that they had that framing around what we would be discussing. So I think it was really good for them to be able to have something that they could reflect back on after the sessions. Um, and then kind of go back and even share it with their teams of, this is what I'm learning during the session. Um, how can we use it as a facilitating tool in our team meetings to have those uncomfortable conversations? So it was a really valuable resource that we had with the Learning Journal, to be able to use it as that reflective tool that could be shared with council members' teams as well.
And I love that the what was taking place in, the learning experience was then actually taken out of that space and taken to team meetings, or those micro moments that we have if you're in the office, for example, where you're passing each other, you're engaging, you're interacting with one another. It was generating those conversations, was generating that reflection. So that's really wonderful to hear that it actually,
Mm.
move beyond that space, which is obviously so important, right? That's one of the things about Allyship Unlocked, is having the courage to have those open, bold, curious conversations. So
Mm.
thank you so much for sharing that. So I guess my next question then is, what has changed as a
Mm.
result of uh, having, delivering the learning experience to your council members?
Um, I think it's really giving them, the biggest change that we've seen is giving them the appetite to want to learn more, to want to take responsibility for their kind of learning journey around DEI. How can it empower them to be more active council members? How to activate that within themselves and with other people that they're in business with. I think that has been the biggest takeaway for doing the Allyship Unlocked with the council members, is that they want to learn more. So it was, I didn't really know this in the beginning of the sessions, or the beginning of the kind of journey that they were learning. How can we learn more? We want to develop our and mature our learning around some of these DEI concepts, because it's just such a big world out there. So I think that has been encouraging to see them wanting to, seeing how the learning has empowered them to want to become more active leaders in this space.
Mm. And I think that's an important point that you touch upon, in terms of recognizing each of them were at, different stages in their own journeys, right? And so how did that play out? Because of course we had, certain participants who were further ahead than others. And it was obviously an opportunity for them to not just learn from our facilitators, but also learn from each other. So
Mm.
has that translated again outside of the Allyship Unlocked space, where they are supporting each other on those learning journeys?
Yeah. So like you were saying, we did have different members who were at different kind of levels in their learning. I think being able to have that space to ask questions where people didn't really understand what some concepts were or what some issues were, was really good to have that kind of framing space. One other thing was, um, even though some people may not have known what maybe a terminology was, being able to describe it and then bring it to the learning sessions, and then being able to identify, oh, that's what that means, and this is how we can find a solution for that. That was really encouraging for the members as well, to know that just because they may not have had the right terminology doesn't mean that they weren't thinking about kind of those elements of DEI and how to apply it to their role. So being able to have that kind of it was peer-to-peer learning. So being able to bring that together for people to see people's different journeys and where they wanted to get to was encouraging for them as well.
Thank you. And it was incredibly powerful to see people bring that experience, that lived experience, which so many of them, openly shared, for which we're incredibly grateful, because it absolutely enriches that learning experience. And as you say, some members may not have had the terminology right to say, oh, that was a microaggression, or, I've been gaslit before, or whatever the case is, but they know what that feels. And so I think that was also an opportunity, right, for people to share their own lived experience and for people to hold space for one another. That's an incredibly powerful learning opportunity right there, isn't it?
Definitely, definitely. I really like what you said about people being able to hold space for one another, because I think in one of the sessions, it was quite challenging, and someone shared about, their experience of being a woman in leadership. And that really sparked conversations around how do we create that equality within the workplace for different genders. How have I facilitated to maybe some inequitable practices, and what are some of the solutions that we can do to kind of aid alleviating some of that. So I think people sharing their lived experience really brought that vulnerability to the conversation, but also allowed people to not be afraid to share, or to share their experiences that they may not have kind of shared in team meetings or with their managers.
Sure. And that's actually an interesting dynamic that you touch upon. And I guess that's where my next question is leading. Within the group, within the DE&I Council, you have members from various business functions, various leadership levels, as it were, some a lot more senior than others. How do you feel that dynamic played out, bringing them together?
Yeah, I think in the inauguration of the council, that was very intentional, that we wanted to make sure that it was leveled. We had different kind of management levels within the council membership, so that we could have those different scopes or frames of reference for people's different kind of business functions and roles, because we know that people bring a different lens from their management level as well. And we didn't want it to just be kind of a top heavy or top down kind of council. We wanted it to be very, I want to say horizontal. I don't know if that's the word. We wanted it to be very.
We understand. Yeah, we understand. It comes down to that partnering, right? And what does effective partnering look like? As you say, you don't want to be top heavy, right? Because actually, allyship, DE&I work really is about, yes, it's about leaders leading, right, with unrelenting focus and having that strategy, but it's also about everyone else, right, doing their part and meeting somewhere in the middle, ideally, in an ideal world.
Yeah. because we wanted it to be a cross-functional council, being able to take different parts of the business and bring it into one kind of council membership.
Thank you. So I'm just aware of time, and I would like to give the audience maybe 2 minutes to ask their questions they may have. So my last question for you, Oge, then is, if you were to tell people in your network about Allyship Unlocked, what would you say to them?
I would say if you're ready to be challenged, then this is the next step in your learning journey for you.
I love that. So succinctly put. Thank you. Which actually leaves us with a few moments for questions. So thank you so much to my colleague Apple, who has been generating engagement on the chat here. I'm just going to go through those to see if we have any questions. Only a few people have some terrible Wi-Fi issues. Oh, Lorna Reeve is asking Oge, who makes up your DE&I Council, and are they on an ED&I team, or do they have other job roles?
So great question. So the governance structure around our council is that we have delegated responsibility from our chief diversity officer. We have two co-chairs that are made up of kind of our executive leadership team. So we wanted to draw away kind of that responsibility and ownership from kind of our EDI team or our inclusion and impact team, and then because we wanted the DI Council to be informed and led by the organization, to have that integration within the organization. So the council members do have their kind of jobs outside of being part of the council, but it is made up of different business units, the key business units, and different leadership levels.
Brilliant, thank you. Those are the only questions that I can see, but of course this is not your only opportunity to connect with us, everybody. We have wonderful Sunil here joining the call, who's our Chief Growth Officer. So please feel free to connect with myself or Sunil. We're more than happy to have those discovery conversations with you. And I just want to say, on behalf of Equality Leaders, thank you so much, Oge, for your time this morning. Thank you for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right, everyone. Apple is sharing our website and our details in the chat, so feel free to get in touch. Feel free to take a look at the Allyship Unlocked program in more detail. Thank you so much for joining us. That's it from us for now. Take care. Bye-bye.